Welcome to week one of And Then She Bounced Back 365 days of learning, loving, and leveling up your life after divorce. If this is your first video, I want to encourage you to go back and watch the introduction video because in that video, I go into details about what this journal entails. And then I also just share my heart about the journey that we're getting ready to embark on. And so if you have not already watched the introduction video, I want to encourage you to go back and watch that video first. If you are ready to jump into week one, I want to say welcome to the first week of a journey that I believe is going to transform the rest of your life. And so, as I stated before in the introduction, every week will have its own specific topic. And this week's topic is what just happened. So, the reason why I think that topic was first for me is because that's literally what I felt the moment I filed for divorce. When I walked into that courtroom and turned in my paperwork and went back to my car, I sat there for like 20 minutes and all I could keep saying and thinking to myself is, what the just happened? And why is this happening to me? And I remember asking myself that question from that first moment I filed all the way into the moment that my divorce was final almost 2 years later. It was the strangest thing to me to spend almost a decade with someone and then all of a sudden wake up and that's not my person anymore. It was the most confusing and traumatic experience that I've ever gone through in my life. And all I could keep asking myself is, what just happened? And so there are some questions that I want to ask you ladies in here today that can kind of help us digest what's happening and then really kind of look into the reason why it happened. So, one of the first questions is, what were some red flags in my past relationship that I ignored in the name of love? And I know that that is a pretty tough question because it requires us to do some self reflection and take some accountability. Because when I look at that question, there's one red flag in particular that I can remember. And it's one red flag that every time I think about the course of my relationship, that I say, if I would have just not ignored that red flag, I would not be here in this space. And that red flag for me is I dealt with my ex um, cheating during our engagement. And I found out about it. And I remember saying to myself, I could walk away right now um, and literally not have to worry about this. But pride made me feel like I couldn't do that because the save the dates were already out. People was already ready to get to the wedding. And I felt like some people had already told me that this wasn't going to work. So I felt like I was going to be proving them right. And so I allowed pride to make me ignore the red flag in an effort to prove people wrong. And ultimately I ended up proving them right anyway. But I think that if I would have just took that red flag as a sign that maybe this person isn't ready for this, I wouldn't be in this situation in hindsight. And so, with that being said, the next question is, if I could go back in time, what would I do different? And even though I say, oh, I wish I would have kind of not ignored the red flag, I wish I would have just walked away. I have the most beautiful kids because of my marriage, right? But there are moments where I wonder what my life would have looked like if I simply would not have ignored the red flag. Or if I made the decision that, hey, I know that this is a red flag, but I'm still going to go all in. I wish I would have went all in because I ended up building walls because of that. Walls of not trusting my husband, and it was a direct reflection of how I treated him throughout the course of our marriage. And so, if I was going to ignore the red flag, I should have really ignored it and then went all in, so that way I could, see what would have happened. I know that kind of makes sense and kind of doesn't make sense, but I know for a fact, holding myself accountable, there were walls that I built that if I was going to just ignore the red flag, I should have just let all the walls down. So I want you to take a moment and reflect on these questions, and I want you to answer them honestly. No one's going to see these but you. But this is the opportunity for you to really, really reflect on what's happening right now and get a better understanding of how you can prevent something like this from happening again.